and welcome to the premiere screening of the short films that were created on the E.D.E.N Digital project. E.D.E.N Digital is an online filmmaking project for members of the LGBTQ+ community and launched in September. We ran filmmaking workshops that covered storytelling techniques, camera and sound recording alongside editing. We also had group discussions, feedback sessions and a one-to-one Zoom chat available for everyone on the project. I want to say thank you to everyone that's been involved with this project. This year has been incredibly tough, but being able to virtually meet LGBTQ+ creatives from across the UK and see their skills, confidence and films develop has definitely brightened up these last few months. And for me, on a personal note, has been one of the highlights of my year.
So in this film, you're going to see a quick interview with each one of our participants and then the finished film that they made after being involved in E.D.E.N Digital. We hope you enjoy.
Why do you think the world needs an LGBTQ+ specific film project such as this?
It's really important to get more LGBT voices out there, more films and kind of more stories by us as well. There is a bit more representation at the moment, but it's not enough. And more projects that can do things like this, like E.D.E.N's doing, is important because they're equipped in the skills and knowledge and confidence and support for LGBT creatives and voices to be able to make their projects happen and also platform those and advertise those out. Every time sort of one of these projects has come up, I've said to people about doing it. I don't know if it was one of the first projects that you did, but I came to the film festival, the film screenings with those. And I sat in the audience, and actually I hadn't come out at that point. I was still sort of understanding more about me, and actually the festival was really important point in where I've met friends and I met people that I now know in a kind of supportive bubble where it's been really kind of important point in my life. And being able to sort of then come out as non-binary afterwards, just from hearing and seeing some of the stories and the films that were there, that I thought when I sat there and watched the films, well, I want to do this project. If you want to make a film or you want to try something out and a project, you want to learn some new skills, meet some new people, and just overall, yeah, nice place to be. And so yeah, there's kind of been a bit of a journey with why I want to do the project, and I have told lots of other people about it as well. I'd highly recommend it.
For you sharing that, I mean, it's made me feel very emotional that that's had such an impact. So I do really appreciate you sharing that, and I'm really glad that you've been part of this project and E.D.E.N Shorts. And
I don't think I've shared it until right now. So
it was very powerful.
I came into the project going, I'm just going to make a film. I can do it. I can do that. Then hitting all the kind of creative blocks that I do in any project, and I think I forget those exist, and I forget those struggles in creating anything and making it a project. But what's been really good is being able to have support from both you and help with that, and being able to kind of speak openly about the things that that I'm struggling with. That means that I was able to maybe just turn my camera on. That was like one of the first things. It might sound really sort of simple or silly. It's not the hardest thing to do, but there was so much worry about not getting the right settings even. So overcoming kind of that, and being able to all the skills that I've learned in the kind of Zoom sessions, and go, oh right, okay, no, this is making sense now, and this is where it kind of it's all coming together. There's just so many different things that are hurdles, but I am overcoming each one, and hopefully there'll be a film at the end, there'll be something. So yeah, that was a very long answer.
Come up with an idea, scrap that idea. Think of another idea, you'll probably scrap that one also. Wait, no, let's just use the first idea. Research. Write a script. Now, sit and wait until just before the deadline to start any more work. Learn how to use the camera. How to turn it on. What do these buttons mean? Look it up. Get distracted by your phone and reconnect with an old friend. Oh, focus! No, I mean you, not the camera, but that's important too. Why did I wait until the last minute to start? You can do this. Don't give up. Oh, you gave up. Wait, no, project is back on. Plan the next steps, of which you won't end up following anyway. Check the memory cards. Turn the camera on. You forgot to charge the batteries. Charge batteries. Now wait. Done. Ready. Lights. Camera. Action. No, still not ready. Have a subject. Discuss film progress so far. Let's just film. Take some interesting shots. Film them again, but closer. Now further away. And now at a different angle, just in case. Maybe that's enough. Hopefully, because the sun has gone. Oh, don't forget some behind-the-scenes shots. Now back it up. Then again, and you guessed it, again. More. Record this voiceover. Edit it all together. Now export that film. You did it. You made a film. Now roll credits and thank everyone involved. How do I put this away again?
Yeah, so the film's called Leaving Home, and it's autobiographical because while I was making the film, I sold my house and I decided to relocate out of Wales and back into England. So it's kind of just following that journey, and also having some connection to the breakdown of my relationship in that. So it is autobiographical, and it's quite cathartic as well, I guess, making it. So.
Yeah, I think it looks really great. Like, we're really impressed by the look of it. Can you tell us a little bit about what the filming and editing process was?
Yeah, so the filming, I got all excited when I learned about gimbals. So I went and bought myself one and had a lot of fun and a lot of frustration with it. Oh, what do we supposed to do again? Oh, low battery warning. Let's get a better phone. But obviously managed to get a few shots that were decent. So that's been fun, and I definitely want to go on and use gimbals and play around with those.
What would you say your biggest takeaway from the project and the film has been?
I think it's probably been working with people online in a learning context, because I do a lot of digital learning, but I design it and I train people online. So being the other side of that and sort of the recipient, I think that's been really key. It's been a really enjoyable process, and I think just looking at sort of the way you guys have kind of done that training online, it's been really inspirational.
Oh, great, good. Thanks. It's sort of connected then, I guess, but what would you say to someone else that's thinking of getting involved in another E.D.E.N course or project?
Well, I'd totally encourage it. I would say that, I started from absolute scratch. I've never made any film. I've been involved in making instructional videos, but I've never been the videographer. I've never, done this kind of thing before. So it was a massive learning curve. I think I'm probably the oldest participant on this one, so probably not as quick up the curve as some of the younger ones. But so I felt really under pressure, I think, in terms of learning new software, but it's been totally worth it. One, it gives me a sort of view into what some of my colleagues do, but it also, it's just kind of, it's put me outside my comfort zone, and I think that's really good sometimes to do that, to sort of push yourself. Especially when you get to be a bit older and you think you can do everything in your sleep and you're fine and you're good at everything. It's really good to sort of go back in and actually learn something different and push yourself. So I think that's been really good.
Chatting to everyone, it's been really I'm trying to find the words, but it's just been it's been really nice hearing everybody saying really positive things, and stuff like that. It means a lot, because it's obviously this project's done out of passion as well, so to hear that it's actually having a positive impact, do you know what I mean? It's just really nice to hear, so I do really appreciate that.
As a kid, I lived in the same house for 18 years. When I was 18, I couldn't wait to leave home. But moving house and leaving home are very different. Now I'm 52, and leaving home is hard. I lived in Berlin in the 90s. The Germans have a word which I've always used to describe this state, where you are somewhere, but nowhere. Ortlos. Placeless.
My young love said to me, my mother won't mind.
The river was black when I first arrived. Today it's clean enough to swim. The bridge used to be a way of connecting my past and my present. Not being able to get to the other side now feels like I'm trapped in time. Ortlos.
She did say,
we met in 2004. I'd never believed I could marry. We lived separately for 4 years. I didn't want to leave my home. It was my bolt hole. But when I look back, I can see that it wasn't the bricks and mortar that held me, made me have a sense of belonging, of place. It was being with her. Home was where she was. This house was our home. She's been gone more than a year. Today, it's my turn to leave, to shut the door one last time, to step into the future.
With one star away.
Ortlos, placeless, a new beginning.
Yeah, so my film's called Hiding Pride, and it's about a girl who's not out to her family yet, and her mom's about to come visit, and she's trying to frantically hide evidence that she's gay before her mom gets there. So I suppose it sounds a bit dark, but I kind of tried to do like a more lighthearted spin on it. And like the inspiration for it was actually a story that one of my friends had told about being in a similar situation where she'd moved up to Dublin for college, and then her mom was coming up visiting from the country, and she wasn't ready for that conversation, so she kind of had to hide things. So I think as well, like it's a story that like it does actually affect people, and people do feel like they have to hide parts of themselves, but also it can be a bit. I also kind of wanted to make it kind of silly, because it's like when you are like gay, especially when you're like freshly out, you love getting stuff with rainbows on it, and you love you end up accumulating all this stuff, and then it's only when you actually stop and look around you realize, oh my god, everything about me just like screams gay. So I kind of wanted to like bring in that kind of element of it too, that like there's just the amount of like gay paraphernalia that you accumulate, and you only realize it when it's an inopportune moment to have it, I guess.
For me, when watching you pick up Adobe Premiere Pro was brilliant. Like it was like you'd edited in it loads. To say it was your first time, you should be really proud of how much you've managed to pick up and do. It was great. So on that, how did you find filming and editing, like technically, and also just like the whole day in the pro? Because we know we've got lots of lovely behind the scenes footage of you both. So how did you find it overall?
I suppose it was definitely great to be working with like a team of me and my best friend. I feel like it would have been a lot more pressure if I'd had people I didn't know as well. So it just meant we spent the entire time just laughing at like how ridiculous it was. For me to be there directing her.
Okay, so this is us enjoying our crew breakfast, which we already mostly ate before remembering to film.
There is Queen Orla setting up for the first shoot.
This is the camera I'll be using.
This is my tripod.
This is me editing the video. Okay, we're having our post-recording day Chinese.
And then again, like filming in my own home was really nice. But then, yeah, I think there was kind of the stress of that. I don't know, I guess I just kind of kept being like, I wish there was someone here to just like supervise me to make sure I'm doing everything right, you know, that kind of way. Because I kept being like, oh no, I've definitely set the settings of the camera wrong, or oh, I'm definitely like framing it wrong and this isn't a proper close-up, or, you know, I kept being like, I wish there was someone here to just like, just tick off like, yep, you're doing that okay, before I actually had to commit to it. So I think that was probably the scariest part, like being like, I don't know, in charge.
Yeah, which is totally understandable, and I guess that's what we've found with this whole new process, of course, is what Brett and I have probably missed the most, is being able to be there, like on shoot days and stuff, to be involved with that process. But you did great to say you didn't have anyone there.
Sorry, I was just tidying up. Mum? How's this?
I think the film world's very middle class, and there aren't many minority people in it that have the chance to express themselves in a way where they feel validated or valued. Or seen, and I think it's important to have spaces where it's not just about the stories, but it's also about the technical understanding of creating those stories. Simply because like the world has changed so much now, and films aren't just shown at film festivals, which again is mostly older, like sorry to say it, mostly older sort of white men that control it. You've got like YouTube and all these other spaces where you can start creating content to create your own community and to feel that sort of acceptance and safe spaces. Most people that make films, like they're always trying to make it like somebody else. They're trying to make the Steven Spielberg, or they're trying to make the Tarantino, and you can get caught up in that sort of cycle of your films are only going to be good if you're trying to emulate the greats, which you know is subjective anyway. So I think it's a good project to be a part of and just enjoy filmmaking for the fun of it, rather than trying to be some sort of niche person that's created this sort of masterpiece that's going to be mainstream. It's just a nice place to make a film that's through your own authentic voice about something that is of meaning to you, and to share in that space with other people, like exploring those passions and exploring those interests in the sort of visual medium. So the film is called Conceptions, and it plays on the idea of a concept, and it meddles with the notion of the literal meaning of objects, iconic spaces and places, and the meanings behind them and how they hold different relevance to the individual person experiencing the objects or the places. And then I apply that theory to people in the sense that everyone we meet, we have expectations of them, but everyone is more complex and much more vivid than we think.
An orange, a round, juicy citrus fruit with a tough reddish rind. Or the first fruit a dying grandfather gives his infant granddaughter. Bracelets, an ornamental band, hoop or collection of chains. Or a stylistic motif of every emo teenager. Wacky wall walkers, a toy in the shape of a man with sticky elastomer balls for its hands and feet. Or the continuous nuisance that the boys threw in all the girls' hair in CCT class. Strombo, the world's leading cider brand with a dry taste. Your friend's poison of choice as a teenager. Frosties, a breakfast cereal made of sugar-coated cornflakes. The sweet treat you shove down your pants at the cinema to watch Precious. Bench, a long hard seat made of wood for several people. The first spot your friend told you they were gay. Trafalgar Lion, one of 4 stone statues in Trafalgar Square. The second spot your friend got drunk at with joy for your acceptance. London Eye, a large Ferris wheel located on the south bank of the River Thames. The spot you and your friends spent your last New Year's Eve together before going off to uni. London skyline, panoramic views of London defined against the sky. The city that made you, broke you, built you, missed you, soaked you, neglected you, loved you. Home. Nicole Cyrus, black, woman, queer, able-bodied, ADHD'd, anxietied, aggressive, loud, greedy, selfish, sassy, emotional, intimidating, angry, butch. Or just a person, free from the constraints of society, complex, complicated, imperfect, human.
this is the rig we've got. So we've got a sweet ring light, a backlight. We've got this. This is basically a light stand, precariously balanced on a tripod. Filmmaking. Hi there, I'm E.D.E.N Cawthall, and my film is All Night Long. Oh, how long the nights are when you have insomnia. Enjoy!
Queer communities need queer spaces to learn, and it's one thing to say, I will chuck a bit of money at this cause or this group, but I think it does come back to some of what I've already said, like that learning space and that learning style, and that community that can be built. I think it's really integral, and I think especially, you can map it out to lots of different sectors, but you look at film, and you look at how those skills are taken up, and you look at people with vulnerabilities. Often you see LGBT people who might have multiple vulnerabilities, intersectional identities, and I think that's something that I identify with personally. I think it's not just about having a space that has the word LGBT thrown in there somewhere. It's about having a space that is at its core about queer film and is about supporting people, regardless of disability, regardless of any minority or vulnerabilities. So I think it's just that whole holistic, intersectional way of thinking, and especially within film, we've got enough cis white blokes that's straight doing the thing, and they're going to always do their thing, but we have to take over it from this area in this space, because otherwise we're never going to allow that moving forward. And there's so much to be said for role modelling as well. I'm not winning any Oscars and I'm not trying to, but it's also something to just have that thing there as an example. Earnestly, I think one of the things from this course that's really stuck with me is just I think so many of us, you can get caught up in being like, oh, I don't want to let these people down, or I don't want to say this. And we've seen loads of examples as a group and personally of actually this has come up and therefore I can't work on that. And I think, it's something to do with the queerness of the course and of the group as well. It's not about the deadline being the be all and end all. It's not even about film being the be all and end all. It's obviously the glue of it. But I think that's been a really encouraging space to work in, because you don't have that same pressure, but you do have that non-judgmental support. You're not going to withdraw your support and your one-to-ones if someone can't come up with something at the end of it. And I think that's another thing that can feel really daunting when you try and take something on within the area of film. that end product, and often that like financial element or whatever else. And it comes down to those barriers that queer people might have engaging within film. And I think it's really beneficial because it'll mean that the films that can come out of this are the ones that represent those experiences that usually might not make it beyond those barriers without that non-judgmental support, or without that like earnest understanding of someone that has that similar experience, and therefore will help encourage and foster what it is that person wants to achieve without it being this funding or this award or this submission. You know, it can just be a space to let it be, and then once someone's got that, they can continue them steps. So
how have you found the filming and the editing process?
Well, I'm still doing the editing process, but it's been interesting. I think I was hoping initially that I'd be able to film people in their own spaces, but because of the lockdown situation, that couldn't happen. I've had to do everything over Zoom, apart from interviewing my wife, who I did, you know, in real life, because she's here anyway. So, yeah, at the moment, I'm still sort of going between a couple of different titles. For some reason, the name is a bit elusive, but I'm thinking I might call it "We'll Be Back." Sounds a bit Arnold Schwarzenegger-esque. Really, had the idea to look at communities, LGBT communities who meet up in real life, and how they were dealing with the pandemic and what effect that had on them. And the one I chose was Out Aloud, which is Sheffield's LGBT choir, which I was a founder member of. And it's very significant to me. It's where I met my wife, and who I've been married to for 8 years. I've been with her for 10 years, and obviously I already know them quite well. So they agreed to let me interview them. Basically centering around how people have coped with the pandemic and how they've managed to sort of create safe spaces and create community and even sort of progress the goals of their organisation even under difficult circumstances.
What I'm curious about is, like, overall, what's going to be your biggest takeaway from being involved in this project, do you think?
I think it's been a real boost to my self-confidence, actually. I know that might seem a bit nebulous. You know, I personally have been in a position since lockdown when I'm working from home. My wife's working from home. I've got my little boy as well, he was obviously home at school to begin with, as everyone was. And it's been really, really stressful. And I think it's been stressful for pretty much everyone, but I've been working really, really long hours. And I've really had to be strict in terms of trying to carve out some time to work on this project and sort of saying, no, this is something I'm doing for myself. But there have been a few times when I've thought to myself, oh, I can't do this. I'm just going to give up. I'm just going to walk away from it. And I've had to give myself a pep saying, no, I am doing it. You know, so I feel like, you know, the fact it's all coming together is really a boost to my confidence and make me feel like I can do things. I feel this has really helped me to sort of push through a lot of that. I think it's important for people to feel sort of, you know, free creatively. And if you're in a space where you can be yourself and be authentic, and where you know you're going to be supported as yourself, you're less worried about that. And that sort of, if you can behave as your authentic self, if you like, and you know you're in a friendly environment, it really helps you to sort of free up your creativity, if you like. And there's a whole sort of level of background worry and things on your mind as an LGBT person. When you're in a sort of more general space that is just gone, you don't necessarily even realise that, you know, until you're in a space which is just for LGBT people. Yeah, so cool. I hope you like it anyway, and you know, even if you don't tell me.
We're gonna love it.
It's gonna be great. I'm very excited.
So you were looking at the scene, you know, a club culture, a bar culture. I suppose if you moved to Sheffield and you wanted to know who there was like you and make friends, there wasn't really a way of doing that, and a lot of people have found that, for example, through the choir.
When the choir started in 2006, there really wasn't very much else in Sheffield for LGBT people, and so I think it's changed that for a lot of people, and it's meant that there's somewhere else for people to go.
There's a long tradition, choral tradition, of LGBT choirs. There's the London Gay Men's Chorus, there's the Pink Singers in London who've been going for I think 25 and 30 years.
I'd never considered that that there could be an LGBT choir. So when I heard that there was one in Sheffield, I went along to see them sing, and it sounded great.
And then I heard that there was going to be an LGBT choir, or I think it was LGB at that point, and I thought, okay, well, I'll give it a go, you know, and so I did, and I thought it was great.
You know, that age when you're too old to go to discos, really, because I was beginning to go a bit deaf and I couldn't have a conversation in disco and didn't go to pubs so much anymore. And it's a bit like just finding other ways to be with other members of your community, really.
I was encouraged to come, and I fell in love with it because everyone was incredibly friendly, and it felt like, you know, the community that I was looking for. It was, you know.
Choir for me is the only thing that really I get involved with now, since I've got older, around LGBT community.
You know, some people have religion. I'm not very religious. And you meet, you know, people go to church once a week and sing and, you know, see people, chat with them. I feel that in many respects this has become my church.
I suppose it's my LGBT family, really.
Obviously, there's been a lot of things where we've sung in huge groups. Street choirs is a good example of that.
I think we've steadily grown our recognition throughout the city of Sheffield.
It certainly made me a lot more comfortable with performing in front of people.
When we went into lockdown, it happened very suddenly. Boom, it's gone.
To have my social outlet and my recreation taken away from me as well was very, very hard.
How do I help the groups that I work with to stay together and stay intact so that when we do come out of this, there's something for them to come back to, something for me to go back to, and something for us to still share together?
Zoom choir is not the same. I mean, it doesn't have the same feeling.
So it's really lovely to go and see people. I mean, even if it's just virtually on Zoom, you know, and we're doing something together or sort of at the same time.
And that was really great because it just kind of was a continuation of choir, really. So it's almost as if nothing had changed.
Although I can't talk to people, it's nice to kind of flick through, even if, you know, we have a lot of people on the Zoom call. It's nice to go through while ballads go through another part and just to see that people are okay.
And so right from the beginning, it was immediately obvious that people were just very moved to see each other on screen, and there was a feeling somehow of being together, and that was lovely, and that's continued.
I have very little point to my life at the moment, and actually being asked to learn some words is quite, it's like, oh, I've got something to do today, that's good. Yeah, that is, you know, the little things that keep us going.
We've actually brought some new members on board, so we've got 14 new members that have joined choir in the last fortnight.
But we'll be back. I think we'll be back at some point. Yeah, we'll be back at Sharrow School.
It'll feel great to be back together.
It's been really lovely to have the more sociable aspect of things.
I really do think there is a pot of gold at the end of this rainbow, and actually that, you know, next year, 2021, we will be back together as a choir.
What my fear when I first thought about joining was oh, I'm not good enough. I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't have a story. And then, you know, hearing everyone else's ideas, you kind of start to picture what you want to talk about, because the story doesn't really have to be there yet, but you always have something to tell, especially when you talk as much as I do. And I feel like there's so much attention to detail and to make everyone feel comfortable, that it's just such a good experience. Even if you're not specifically interested in filmmaking, it's just such a empowering thing to do. I told Claire, for example, the first few sessions I didn't attend because I wasn't, I'm not out with some bits of my family. Coming from a Catholic country, that kind of happens. And the idea of having, like, being sure that you're gonna feel comfortable because nobody's gonna judge you for that part that you are always told that you should hide or you should, like, be very self-aware of, was like so liberating, because you just show up and it's just about, because as much as it's, yes, it's centered around the fact that it's LGBTQ plus, like, focused, it's not at all focused on that. It's just like, it's, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's like you leave that at the door. You know that that's on the door, but then when you actually go through the door, you totally forgot about that. It's more about the feeling comfortable while you're there. So my film is called Boil, and I don't know what it's about. I'm not gonna lie, but I think it came from my need to express my anxiety, which at the moment it's like been very visual on my face because I've been getting like so many pimples. I haven't looked like this since I was like 14, which is so exciting because I'm young. That's what it means. I know that's what it means. And I don't know, I felt like that was the biggest thing in my life, because when the first like big quarantine happened, I ended up dissociating for the first time in my life, and last, hopefully. And I was like, okay, now I need to look at this for real. So I think at first it was that, but then I was like, I'm not enough a visual artist, so I made it a bit more scary.
I think from watching it, you know that like we're big fans of it. A lot of the other members of the group that watched it really enjoyed it. What do you think, like, what was the biggest challenge for you in undertaking the project, the film?
I want to be an actress when I grow old, but at the same time, if someone is around me while I'm doing something that it's like acting, I feel so self-conscious. Also, when I was showing like the first like cut to everyone, I really felt like my head burning and my face getting red, almost like it is now. And I don't know, I think it's coming to accept the fact that I can do what I'm doing, and I should be fine with showing it to people and being there and listen to what they have to say, whether it's positive or negative. I need to be there and take in what people are saying. Push yourself, because like I would have never, I'm like, oh my god, I want to be an actress and that's what I want to do with my life. And I, like, as much as like, because I never thought I could be a director, because I see it as too stressful and too many things to take care of. And then when you're actually on set, which was my room, people are very willing to have a take on what you're doing.
So you're leaving on Sunday?
On Sunday, yeah. There's so much stuff that I need to get ready as well.
You've got to pack up all your stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with my
place.
Guitar as well. I need to put that away somewhere.
Somewhere safe.
Yes, and then there's all the clothes and stuff that I need to pack as well.
I suppose it's useful because you haven't had time to accumulate loads of new things.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I have enough space. Like, if I just have to go back with the things that I brought, it should be fine.
It should be okay.
I didn't buy too much stuff, which is good.
Yeah. Do you think we should do something like before you go on Saturday?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe grab some lunch or something.
That would be really nice.
Yeah.
Would you be free on Saturday to come to dinner?
Well, we could always go to, I don't know, do you know any nice place around here?
Not gonna lie, I didn't eat out a lot in my last 2 years, so...
I mean, I'm sure we can just find somewhere, just randomly.
Yeah. Should be okay.
Yeah, and then...
My film is called Remnants, and it is a silent sci-fi style film about an SOS signal that was sent across the galaxy and the respondent attending to the message. Obviously, because of changes in lockdown and where I was living, I had to change my idea like quite drastically. And I had like a block for a while where I just couldn't really think of anything to do. But also being like, oh, you know, we've had these workshops for however many weeks, and it feels like such a shame to be like, oh, well, because that one idea I'd fixated on wasn't going to work, that means I can't think of anything at all. And then it was really misty where I was living for a few days, and I thought, okay, I might try and take advantage of like the way that the weather is at the minute. So I remember on the Sunday morning like saying to my dad, oh, could you just like help me just record some stuff outside because I can't film by myself? And he was like, yeah. So then the weather forced me to then be like, okay, I have no choice. I have to beg for help, and I have to ask for help now. If you want to make films, especially if they're LGBT themed, like not just LGBT makers but LGBT themed, that you're in a space where other people could probably recognize if it's going into tropey territory, or you don't feel like you have to do like a sort of tropish performance of like, I'm going to make an LGBT film and it's going to have all this tragicness or have all this predictability, which I don't think necessarily flags up to people who aren't LGBT. But also just like having a space where you don't necessarily, because my film wasn't really an LGBT, I wouldn't call it like a queer film or an LGBT film, but like having a space where you're around other LGBT people and queer people just makes it like so much more like at ease, where you don't really feel like you have to be questioned on who you are, or you're misgendered, or like people are coming from a level where they don't understand that. Because I feel like in other creative groups I've been in where it's not LGBT, like it's really easy for stuff like being misgendered or like heteronormative sort of ideals to slip under and people not really notice that. So I think that's what's great about like E.D.E.N and about this project, is that you feel a lot more safe even if you're not exclusively making LGBT content. Because E.D.E.N's a gem, like there really is like no other, I really can't think of any other production company which is an LGBT like focused and run. So it's truly a gem.
I think the biggest takeaway has to be sort of split into two, really. One, that personally it's been a really amazing experience for me to tap into this new creative part of myself through like a visual medium. But I think the second part is just how quickly you can bond with people that have similar experiences to you. And it's the first time I've ever been part of an LGBTQ plus project. And I think that's something that I'm really proud of because, yeah, it's the first time I've really acknowledged that I am part of that community and I can call myself as part of that community as a bisexual man. My film for this project is going to be called A Father's Love, and it's about the love that my dad and I have for each other, how that has changed and evolved from me as a young child to me as a late 20s adult, and how that has basically kept us together through the darkest of times that any parent and child can experience. How did you feel when you said to your son, you couldn't do this anymore, and should we end our lives together?
I felt in complete despair. It sounds a terrible thing to say, and for anyone to hear, probably doesn't seem like the right thing for a parent to do, but I felt that there was nowhere else to go. I didn't think my son would survive, and I couldn't think of being without him because I felt I failed him, and I just felt that if he was going to die, then I would be there with him. That's it really.
When you think of the phrase, a father's love, what does that mean to you?
I know I'll never stop loving my son, and I know I'll be there for him. For as long as I'm here, I'll be there for him.
What does your son mean to you?
Well, it's a phrase that I hear where people go, well, my son, my daughter is my life. And I think that's true. It is true for me. But I've got my own life. But, yeah, my son is my life. I've got to be honest.
My film's called Cariad. It's a Welsh word that means love, and my film follows a young woman called E.D.E.N, who is Welsh, who has that kind of relationship where she doesn't know if they're going to become a thing with her friend Ellie, who is English, and there's a bit of will they, won't they before the film starts. The film chronicles that conversation where Ellie is asking E.D.E.N, what are they to each other? And the film follows E.D.E.N, who decides to make a handmade Welsh love spoon in a traditional Welsh cultural thing for St. Women's Day for Ellie to show her that she loves her. So it's a coming of age kind of relationship, just cute Welsh gay film.
What made you want to make this film in particular?
This was a very last minute switcheroo from the original idea that I had planned. I was very keen to tell a love story between two women, and being based in Wales over the last few years, being English myself with a Welsh girlfriend, I've come to really appreciate the Welsh cultural values and the need to have more diverse same-sex films with women in that showcase happy relationships. This has been a very short turnaround for a new script because the previous one I had a cast in place, I had a finished script, I had props, everything was done, and then the firebreak lockdown happened in Wales again. So I'm currently making this film in a one-bed flat where it's just one bedroom, one bed, with no budget, and just me and my girlfriend, which is a massive challenge because there's floorboards creaking upstairs, there's people slamming the door, there's like 3 other flats in this building. So it's all about trying to coordinate everyone's schedules between me and my girlfriend because I'm working and my partner's at uni, just trying to fit that round shooting inside a living environment that is our home. Let's go see what the team are up to. This is Lauren Taylor. She stars in the film as E.D.E.N as the main character, and she is the DOP. Is this your first film as DOP?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah.
Fantastic. This is Corinne. Hello. What role are you doing? I can't remember.
First AC.
Way. And this is our camera, which is
It is a Canon 750D.
This is quite exciting because this is the first time that all 3 of us have worked together. It's the first short film that I've ever worked on, the first film that I've ever made myself. This is kind of difficult at the moment with the current restrictions in place. So we are here at Victoria Park in Cardiff, where no one other than us seems to be wearing a mask, which is not great, but great for our shots. There we go. The bed is stuck inside the plate.
Right, the only thing I think of is using teeth, but obviously
My hand's
COVID's
too
not the most ideal.
Hang on, I'll help out.
I've learned so much more now than I have from actually working professionally in film or throughout my degree or work experience, because it's very hands-on and actually teaches you how to do things rather than you're a PA and you're going to go and do coffee, that kind of thing, which is still very helpful experience. But in terms of like building yourself as a filmmaker or building your interest in film as a hobby, I found it to be extremely helpful in that. With projects like this, you know that you're in a group with similar people. Things are safer to talk about, that kind of thing. You can express yourself more freely, which can then help creatively down the line. But also in terms of like working independently, everyone in the group might not have produced this film themselves, but we don't know who that film may then go on to help. That film, then each film may inspire other people or may resonate with people, help them come to a more peaceful conclusion with themselves and their gender identity and their sexuality and that kind of thing. And it's just, there is a definite lack of LGBTQ plus content on screen, both above and behind camera as well. So it's very, very important to have that, to let people know that they can. Stuff like E.D.E.N has been extremely helpful because I don't live in Sheffield, I live in Wales. And I wouldn't be able to do that if COVID had come about. But it's extremely helpful that E.D.E.N has broadened this out and utilised the negative effects of COVID to reach a wider group of people, because I've really enjoyed this. My contact with the outside world has been very limited over the last few months. This has been the highlight of my week, in that I can have a regular contact with people, I'm forced to talk to people, I can have a creative outlet and keep talking to people, which has been extremely beneficial both to myself as a filmmaker and for my mental health.
Shemai, it's Rian. Leave a message. Hey Rian, sorry for calling out of the blue, but I just really want to talk. Are you doing okay? I haven't heard from you since New Year's Eve. I know we've been friends for years and I don't want to ruin that, but I need to know what's going on. You can't just kiss me, not say anything, you know? Where are we at? Just talk to me, okay? Look, I've got tomorrow off. Meet me in Victoria Park at 4. Please? See you tomorrow.
Thanks for meeting me. I'm sorry for pulling away. It's scary, isn't it? Just a bit. I mean, Hoffy T, I like you a lot. I made you this. What? A last spoon on St. Women's Day. Very traditional. You don't like it? No, I do. I really do. And I really like you too, Rian. Happy St. Women's Day.